Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at a lot of gameplay actually here today with the Shadow Haunter. This Pokemon was so much fun to play. I actually wanted to try out this Pokemon for such a long time already, but never really found a team that was working for me, or the meta was not really right for it. But now with the Annihilate meta, this Pokemon actually has so much play. The cool thing about this Pokemon is you're going to do a ton of damage with both your fast as well as your charge moves, but you're also gonna get very fast to those charge moves. The downside, you're literally paper thin in terms of your bulk, and so basically you kinda want to save your shields if possible. A lot of times it's not possible, but maybe you can one-shot opponents, not too sure. What we're gonna do here is we are running Shadow Punch. I like Shadow Punch a little bit more than Shadow Ball. I do know why people are running Shadow Ball. Basically, the benefit of Shadow Punch is that you're going to be able to get to the second move one fast move earlier than if you just run with Ice Punch basically. But of course, Shadow Ball does way more damage. Like honestly, it just does way more damage. And so we're going to go for the little bit of a safer play, which I feel like is the better play as well. You're going to see the Poliwrath coming in, Shadow Poliwrath, and we're going to try to go for the CMP tie, which does not work, which does not matter because it can go for the Shadow Punch and do a ton of damage here already. And so we're going to put them perfectly into a farm down range for our Galarian Stunfisk here, getting a ton of energy, and the opponent has nowhere to go. The Charger Bug here has literally no play at all against the Galarian Stunfisk, the worst matchup for it, and we can now move on into the next game as the opponent decides to forfeit. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have a Wigglytuff here, and they swap out immediately into the Tropius. I should maybe play this out a little bit differently, but yeah, I just saw that they are running the fast move of Razor Leaf, which is actually way better for us, because we're going to resist this with our Haunter here. But yeah, I should just mostly swapped immediately into the Haunter. We have access to the move Ice Punch, which is so much better anyway, would one-shot the opponent for sure. But now I can still go for a Shadow Punch, get the knockout here, align my Pokemon correctly, which is always going to be nice. And also, we can still have some energy here, which you can throw onto the opponent's Wigglytuff. Sadly, no Sludge Bomb onto this Pokemon here, which we would have access to if we would want to run it, which also would be an option if you really want to have like some coverage for like Fairy-type Pokemon with this Pokemon here. But yeah, we are running the Shadow Punch instead, which is totally okay as well. But we're gonna put the opponent kinda into range where we just have to go for one charge move here. As the opponent decides to stay in here, I can just go for the Rock Slide. And here you're going to see something very interesting. The opponent is using a shield, and what this kind of tells me is that they're going to be insanely weak against Galarian Stunfisk in the back, especially after seeing the second one. And so I can still reach another move here, which is kind of funny, and luckily this is actually just barely enough to knock them out, which I was kind of confused about that this was actually the thing. But yeah, we're going to be able to now align our Galarian Stunfisk against the opponent's Bastion. One Earthquake is not going to get the knockout after the debuff, but we still have our Sableye, and this is enough for the opponent to decide to forfeit. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have a lead that I actually don't really like, which is going to be the Broguiere. I just kind of want to get some damage onto them. So like if you wonder, oh, why does he go for the Rock Slide here and stuff, even baiting basically for the Earthquake, the reason is I want to swap out anyway, because we have a double Ghost line. You kind of have to swap out. It's an ABB style line anyway, but you kind of want to get the opponent into a range where you might be able to farm him down with any of our Shadow Claw users later on. And this is basically why I went for the Rock Slide. So just for you, you don't have to do it, by the way. Like this is kind of the way I want to play it. You can still try to go for the Earthquake and go for the Earthquake or bait the Earthquake, but I just went for the Rock Slide because it guarantees me a ton of damage onto the Shadow Broguiere and puts them into range for me to later on farm them down. Here we're gonna get out the Bastion, of course, and we're gonna get a ton of energy, which is really nice for us. Free energy for our Galarian Stunfisk is always amazing, as we will see what the opponent is going to do here. They're going to swap out into the Medicham, and now it's Haunter time, and this is exactly what I mean. This is why I went for the Rock Slide. The opponent is now into range where the Shadow Claw damage, which is of course nice to say, is enough to knock them out. And now you're going to have Shadow Punch, which is also going to be better in this scenario. If you have like a two-shot scenario, Shadow Punch is just going to be spammier. But also, we're just going to do so much damage with the Shadow Claw. Like, honestly, look at the damage output of Shadow Claw against the opponent's Medicham, and they should know at this point as well that this game is over. One or more charge move is all it takes to knock them out. This is coming through right now as well. They went for the CMP tie, they lose the CMP tie, like everything gonna lose against the Haunter, and so we can win this game fairly easily. I actually went on to an 8-game win streak with this team, which is also kind of wild. So like the first 8 games that I played, not even like that I lost like one and then played or whatever, like the first 8 games that I played with this team were only wins. I had like some other like a little bit tougher games later on as well, but still, like, this team was so much fun to play. I was going way positive so far. During the last 2 days of Go Battle League, which is basically like, I think I played 18 sets total, I climbed up 650 points total. I'm now at like 2,800 again after tanking on purpose prior. So like, you're going to see also tomorrow, which I already made the teams basically as well. Really good teams to climb. So this one is also one that I used to climb. Of course, it's a little bit more fun of a team, but they're going to be some really decent meta teams tomorrow. And so definitely stay tuned for that. This team can be a little bit of, like, can be a little bit tricky against something like an Azumarill, by the way. This is, of course, kind of clear here, but it's still playable, so you're going to most likely see some matchups later on as well. Here, we're going to get out the opponent's Gallagher, which is kind of fine, because I can still go for some foul plays, which are going to get the opponent fairly low. I can even try to go for a return if I want to, but 2 foul plays seems to be a little bit more of the smarter choice to go for, because this is going to allow me to get at least the shield or the knockout here, and both of which I'm going to be totally okay with. We're going to get here the knockout, which is totally fine. They're going to have the Trevenant in the back, and you're going to see something very interesting here as well. If you remember, we have still some energy onto our Galarian Stunfisk, and so what I can do now is I can still go for the Shadow Punch, force the shield, and thanks to the Shadow Claw damage, we were able to put them easily into range for the Rock Slide. With 1 HP here, our Galarian Stunfisk is going to win us this game, and we can move on to the next opponent. A little bit of a longer video today, of course, because I have like way more gameplay thanks to having 10 sets a day, of course, so I can play a team also for a little bit longer and give like a little bit more of advice in certain matchups. But here against the Azumarill, you definitely want to swap out, and I usually go for the bait first, which is something that you don't have to do. You should go for the charge move a little bit earlier as well, I would say, but here I went for over 100 energy, which is not really ideal, but great play by the opponent, like definitely really good play here. They went for the swap perfectly into the Sand Slash, so they were able to catch the return. Really great play there, but still, we can still go for another charge move prior, which is going to be amazing, as it's going to be a CMP tie. The opponent can knock me out. I will take this move for sure. It's going to be the Ice Punch, and I can go into my Haunter and go for the full farm down before they can do anything. And now Haunter is in a prime position to do something very nice later on, but we are going to try to catch the move here, which works out amazing as well. Keeping energy on Haunter is always amazing, because you always win CMP tie, you always do a ton of damage, and the opponent's Azumarill here, it doesn't really look too healthy anymore, right? So we can use a shield. Of course, the bubble buff this season is going to make this matchup a little bit more tricky. Back in the day, actually, like, bubble Ice Beam moveset is not really the ideal moveset. Like, you still had actually a decent chance of winning this with the Galarian Stunfisk. Now bubble does more damage, so this matchup is a little bit more awkward. But as you can see here, we're still gonna go up here ahead basically and gonna be able to get the knockout against the opponent's Azumarill. With this, I can swap out, I can still take a Volt Switch, which is very important, and I can still just go for 2 Shadow Punches in order to knock out the opponent, and this is going to be a good game there. Goodbye trainer, and we can move on to the next opponent. Very okay lead here. This is a little bit of an awkward one, honestly. Again, like, there are a lot of trickier matchups. Like, I would say this team is a little bit tricky to play. Like, I of course enjoyed this one quite a bit, as you might already imagine, with going 8 games in a row unbeaten. But it is definitely a little bit of a trickier one to play in certain matchups. The Alolan variant of Sandslash is definitely a little bit tricky because they have access to the move Drill Run. They are very fast to get to the charge move. Here I can actually catch an Ice Punch, which is really important that this is an Ice Punch. You wonder why? Because now I can survive another Ice Punch, and this is super important, because otherwise I would not get to this charge move here. If they went for 1 Drill Run, I would have not been able to get there. So like, if you're the Sandslash, rather go for 1 Drill Run. Also later on against the Sableye, it's definitely better to go for that. But I can now get the knockout against the opponent. What you can see here as well is they have now a shield advantage still, which is going to be super important, because otherwise Haunter is going to be a little bit difficult to play. But like this, I can still go for 1 Earthquake against the opponent's Lantern. I can get some extra energy here, and I will swap out immediately, hoping that I can farm them all the way down. But it's going to be a tough one. Let's see what we can do here. We're going to be able to not get the farm down done, because I can actually still go for the Surf. They're still going to throw with 1 HP as well, but they're going to swap out into the Pelipper. I'm not too sure if Ice Punch is doing more than the Shadow Punch. I think it actually does do a little bit more damage. Shadow Punch is actually a pretty horrific move. Like, I think it does like 40 damage for 35 energy, while I think the Ice Punch does 55, so it should do a little bit more with the Ice Punch. But yeah, we're going to be able to still win this game anyway, because the Pelipper is going to go down to a Rock Slide and we can easily knock them out. Next opponent here, we're going to have another sensation in the lead, so we kind of want to try to play it out again, kind of like we did before. This is the thing as well, you kind of want to catch the move here. If you don't catch the move, it is a little bit awkward, but as you're going to see here, we can go for one rock slide, try to bait them out, and let's see, they're going to actually use a shield, which is really important for us as well. And so we're going to be able to swap out now. Gonna have the matchup now against the opponent's Gligar with our Sableye, and I have to say as well for the Haunter, I just looked it up, if you just can get to one move and both moves are neutral, Ice Punch is doing more damage and also a little bit more damage per energy compared to the Shadow Punch there, but it's definitely still, like, it's not really the biggest difference there. So basically if you're just gonna be in a matchup where, for example, like before against a Pelipper or whatever, the Ice Punch is doing indeed a little bit more damage. But yeah, again, like this is most likely also why a lot of people are opting to go for Shadow Ball. I feel like the last time I tried to play Haunter, I always tried to play Shadow Ball, and I never felt like that I was able to get to those moves very fast. And for example here, you would not be able to do any damage with the Ice Punch, but with the Shadow Punch you're going to be able to do a ton of damage. And also with the Shadow Claw here, you're going to be able to put them into range for a Rock Slide. And so we're going to have now a fairly decent matchup, but I have to say, very smart thinking here of the opponent. I was thinking like, yeah, I win this game because I can survive the Icy Wind, it is just the Icy Wind, but the opponent goes for the full undercharge. And with this, they were actually able to clean up this game, because otherwise, of course, the Shadow Punch would have been enough from this range with the extra Shadow Claw damage. But because they basically went for the full undercharge there, they're going to be able to just barely outspeed me, so this is going to be sadly the loss that they took, the first one that I took, I think. So congrats there, well played by the opponent. Let's move on to the next opponent here. Great lead for us. Something that you barely really see is going to be a Steelix nowadays. I don't know where this Pokemon really went. Oh wait, the Breaking Swipe got nerfed, but I still think that this Pokemon has some play. Maybe a little bit less play nowadays because of the Annihilate, but maybe even going to be not the worst matchup because it still has Psychic Fangs. So maybe Psychic Fangs on this Pokemon has some play as well. Have to try it out. Maybe as a Sasop, I would actually think that this Pokemon has some play, but yeah, maybe going to be something for a different video. But here we're gonna get up against the opponent. I can still go for the Earthquake here. This is going to be able to get the knockout finally, and we have both equal shields, and we're going to see the Medicham coming in, and you know it already. This is going to be a funny matchup later on, because what is the Medicham going to do against our backline? Literally the hardest Medicham answers we have here for our backline, which is just amazing. And so we're now going to go up against the opponent's Bastiodon, and I'm fairly certain that they're going to be forced to go for a charge move fairly fast here. So I'm going to let this move go through. I don't really care. I'm just going to leave the shield for my Haunter for later on. And I don't get to another charge move, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I still have the Earthquake waiting here for the Bastion, going on a CMP tie as well, which is going to be amazing for me. As you're gonna see now, the opponent is gonna get knocked out there, and it's going to be the Medicham against the Haunter, and so we can just go ahead and do a ton of damage against them. But even if they're going to go for the knockout later on, it does not really matter, because we still have like a Rock Slide like later on nearly start with the Galarian Stunfisk, but it doesn't matter because they don't even use a shield, and we can easily win this game. Amazing lead for us. We're going to have a Bastion against us for the next game. It's going to be swapping into a Gligar. You have to be a little bit faster than I am for the swap into your Sableye. This was a very slow swap for me, which is not really ideal. But at least I'm going to be able to hit a charge move against the opponent. And honestly, I am a little bit confused on what the opponent did here now, because I thought that this is just the Aerial Ace, and it turns out it is the Dig already, and they barely not knocked me out here. But if I was the Gligar, I would just go for a switch alignment, but they didn't, and I was like, why would you not do this? And it's going to be a Charizard in the back, and this matchup is still going to be a very, very tough one, because we know we have a great matchup there against the Bastion, but we also know that this Charizard has access to the move Blast Burn, and Blast Burn would completely annihilate me. But look at the damage that we do with Shadow Claw, and I expect that the opponent going to swap out fairly soon here, because I need to keep basically a Blast Burn stored for later on. I get the final shit from the opponent, they decide to swap out, and I can swap out in time into my Galarian Stunfisk. So now I can still go for an Earthquake. I know that this is going to get not the knockout yet, because the opponent is going to be able to survive this, but I can put them perfectly into Farmland range. I know that they're going to be able to go for the Flamethrower. There's nothing that I can do about it, but a Blast Burn going to knock me out no matter what, so it does not really matter at all. Do they already have a Blast Burn here? They sadly do, and so this is going to be not a win, but also not a loss, because I can just farm them down. It's going to be a tie there. Good game to the opponent. Next opponent coming through, we're going to have here another Poliwrath in the lead, and I can swap out immediately into my Sableye. I just go for the foul play. If the opponent is Shadow, it's actually a little bit better for you because your fast move damage is adding up a little bit faster. And so I can just use a shield here on this gold. Of course, we're gonna get the debuff as always. And as you can see here, we can still go for another foul play and force most likely a shield. But if we force a shield here, the opponent is most likely gonna go for another charge move very soon. And I can now decide to either realign, which I'm not gonna do because I don't know what they have in the back, or get a ton of energy on my Haunter, which I'm gonna do because it's going to not really matter what they have in the back. Haunter hits basically everything. A Clodsire is no exception to this one, and they're going to run the Poison Sting as a fast move. I can catch a move. Very likely it's going to be the Earthquake, but it's still better to catch it here, and it is the Earthquake indeed. And we can still try to go for our own Earthquake. The opponent swaps out into the Gligar, and I can at least go for the Rock Slide spam now. Let's see if this is going to be enough to get them into farm down range for my Haunter. It's going to be a close one as I can reach for another Rock Slide. They're forced to still go for the dig. I'm not in Aerial Ace range yet, at least what I think. Maybe I'm actually in range for this, but I'm not too sure. They're gonna go for the dig no matter what anyway, and I can overfarm by a little bit. We have now nearly 100 energy. I can go for the Shadow Punch, and what I actually can do here is I can force the final shield, which I was very confused about, but I'm totally happy with this because I can go for the knockout now, and I'm still going to have the Ice Punch loaded for the Clodsire coming back in. Super effective damage coming through here and doing a ton of that, and now we can just go for the full farm down. And our Haunter was able to completely destroy the opponent, so let's move on to the next one. Next opponent is going to run a Mantine in the lead, which is an amazing lead for us as they swap out into the Registeel. What you can do here is, honestly, you can go for the Earthquake. If I had Shadow Claw and Shadow Ball, I most likely would go now and swap into my Haunter, but because I don't have this, I try to catch the move onto my Sableye, which actually works out super well, so we're going to be able to catch the resisted Focus Blast there, which is amazing. I can still go for my own foul play. But what I'm fearing here is that the opponent is going to survive another one, and they definitely do, especially if they're gonna get a debuff now. Hopefully they don't get a debuff. Let's take a look at this. They're gonna, of course, get the debuff here, and so this is going to be a bad matchup. But the opponent actually decides to swap out here, which is maybe even bad for me though. So it's going to be a little bit of a closer one now. I can still go for another foul play and try to get them a little bit lower. But this is going to put them now into Rock Slide range, so I can swap back into my Galarian Stunfisk. This is going to be the Ice Beam. It's not going to do too much damage. What I'm more scared of is going to be, of course, the charge moves from the Registeel. I can overfarm by quite a bit, and this is going to get the knockout against the Mantine, but we have to see what is coming in next. It is going to be the opponent's, let's see, Swampert. And at this point I was like, yeah, this game is over. Like, what am I supposed to do here now? Like, the opponent still has their Swampert. We don't really have the Pokemon anymore that have like a lot of health. Of course, like, yeah, our Haunter has them, but like basically our only Pokemon that can really take a move from the opponent's Swampert would be our full health Sableye, but of course it's really low into the deep red health, and so I let this move go through, and it's all down to Haunter. Can Haunter clean up this game? They have like way more energy than I thought. It's going to be so close. Let's see what the opponent is going to do. They try to catch this move, and they do try this, but it does not work. And with this, I can showcase why Shadow Punch is so important sometimes. We will be able to now perfectly outspeed the opponent, and like this we can win this final game. Hope you enjoyed this a little bit longer video, 18 minutes for you here of gameplay with the Haunter. If you did, feel free to leave a like, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.